I'm still getting goosebumps when you say that. I'm just sitting here sucking it in. So I'm so proud of the riders we have in Sweden.
Hello and welcome to episode 70 of the Virtual Velo Podcast with me, Emma Martin, and my co-host, Chris Schwenker. Now, the Virtual Velo Podcast, the show that bridges the gap between athlete and avatar, keeping it real in the world of cycling esports. What happens when cycling esports takes centre stage at a national sports festival alongside the country's top winter athletes and gets broadcast into 500,000 homes? Sweden just showed us that the groundbreaking moment for the sport can be done with the right people and the support of the Federation. In this episode, we sit down with Conny Björnehall, the man leading the charge for cycling esports at the Swedish Cycling Federation, to hear how they pulled it off and what's next for the sport.
And in my opinion, Emma, to set a standard at the Federation level to show what can be done with the right people, vision, support, and obviously a lot of hard work.
Welcome, Conny Björnehall, to the Virtual Velo Podcast.
Oh, thank you. So nice. I'm so glad to be here. And what a fantastic introduction. I'm really happy to hear that.
Well, we like to try and set things off the right way, and the right way is probably what we are about to hear about. So let's jump right in. Can you tell us, Conny, we'll sort of start off with the basics. What is your official title at Swedish Cycling, and how long have you been working in that role?
Yeah, I'm actually chairman of Ecycling within the federation. So that's my official title. And I've been within the federation for about 4.5, 5 years now. And that was also when I brought e-cycling into the federation, because the federation didn't have e-cycling as a sport then.
So that was new to the federation when you came in then?
Yeah, actually, I think the kind of things came together. I figured out that I wanted e-cycling to grow in Sweden. I wanted e-cycling to have a part or a role within Swedish athletes. And I was always thinking about how should we do this? How should we get e-cycling to grow? And how could we get e-cycling to get some kind of authenticity? So how could it be verified as a regular or normal sport? So in that sense, I actually approached the federation and tried to explain to them that this is something huge. This is a great possibility or a great opportunity for you, for e-cycling, for a new sport, and I think you should take it. They did. And I guess they got me as well on that.
You pitched to cycling esports. You came yourself with that pitch. How did you come to want to put that pitch into the Swedish Cycling Federation?
Well, I think that's also because of my history and also of my own interests, because I'm a former, I guess, kind of a professional athlete who always are looking for things to do and things to explore. And I'm also very interested in digitalizations and AI and stuff like that in my normal work or my real work. So I thought that, well, if you could combine digitalization, AI, sensors, technology, fun stuff with training and exercise, I mean, that would be a success, obviously. So I got into e-cycling and I figured out really fast that this is a growing sport. This is a huge, what do you say? There's so many people involved in this, and the community is great. The social things that you get out of this sport is amazing. So I thought that if you combine this has to be something in here. So I guess that's why I thought that this is something that I want to do. This is something that I would like for everyone to experience. But I also understood that for e-cycling to have a chance to expand and to take place, there also need to have a role in Sweden. And for that to take place, the most reasonable thing is to actually add it to the federation.
Yeah, it's really interesting, Conny. Now, are you dedicated to esports? Is that your primary job at the federation?
Yeah, that's my only job at the federation. So that's the only thing I do. I only work with e-cycling within the federation, nothing else. So that's my
It's,
responsibility.
yeah, we of course had Martin Hjorngard on for an interview not too long ago, and his job was actually split between a more traditional role at the Danish Cycling Union and esports. And between all the federations, you and him are the only ones that I can think of. I try to be informed, but I don't know everything about the sport that actually has a cycling esports person. But that makes you the only one that's actually dedicated to esports for your federation. So I want to ask you, what does your day-to-day role consist of? Like, how do you keep yourself busy with esports every day to substantiate the designation by Swedish Cycling?
Yeah, and I should also say that it's not only me that works with e-cycling within the federation. So I'm actually responsible for a group of people that works with e-cycling and also to be able to promote e-cycling. So we are a small group, and I think this is a teamwork. We need to, of course, I'm responsible for keeping it all together, but we all have different specialities and different competences and so on. So we have, for example, people that are looking into the races and the regulations and looking into the riders and so on. So I mean, this group is really important to be able to make this work. I could also say that, I mean, working at the federation is not my main occupation. So unfortunately, I'm not working within the federation full time. I'm not working with the federation not liksom day to day and 8 to 5, then I have another job. So this is mostly based on the willingness for us to do this and our urge to evolve the sport. So for us, the foundation of e-cycling is still funded or supported by our partners and sponsors and so on. So they are extremely important to be able to actually get this, to be able to make this work, to be able to let us do all of these fun things we do with e-cycling. So it's good, but it could also be even better.
It's interesting that we spoke during the pre-show that you're actually in the offices in Stockholm giving some talks on AI. Is your background in technology? Is that how you got into esports?
Yeah, that's correct. I've been working within the technology industry for all of my life, and now I work with digital transformation and AI solutions for the Swedish Research Institute. So helping organizations and so on with those kind of issues, problems and challenges. So it's quite natural for me to combine technology with sports.
It seems like there's a whole another interview there, Emma, with performance verification and protocols and things that we could have with Conny down the road. But so you mentioned the support. You mentioned the support of your partners. I'm curious what support you actually receive from the federation, whether that be financial, human resources. Are they all in and backing you with this project?
Yeah, they are backing us with different things. We have a fantastic support by the federation. I mean, they have been really supportive. I think that the main thing is that they actually took us in and made e-cycling a part of the federation. I think that's that's the biggest thing, because if we haven't done that, we wouldn't have been able to do these national championships. We wouldn't be able to do this Swedish Cup series and so on. So that's huge. So we are really, really thankful for the support of the federation. They are struggling with giving us financial support. So the financial support is still something that we need to get our own finance situation, so that we will need sponsors and partners who are willing to support e-cycling, and that's how we are financing our group and what the things we are doing. But in every other aspect, the federation give us great support.
And that support, Conny, that you have got, and the passion and drive of you and the team have had some outstanding results. If we just look at the 2024 World Championships for a minute, Sweden had a standout showing, 17 riders in the semi-finals across the men's and women, 8 of which progressed to the live finals in Abu Dhabi. 6 women and 2 men from Sweden went to Abu Dhabi for that World Championships in October last year. It's a seriously impressive achievement.
Yeah, I'm still getting goosebumps when you say that. I mean, I'm just sitting here sucking it in. So I'm so proud of the riders we have in Sweden. They are so strong, and it's not just these riders. We have dozens of other riders as well, especially on the women's side, who are extremely strong and good. So yeah, I couldn't be more proud. They are super, super good, and it's. I mean, it's almost amazing. We're such a small country and have so many good riders. I mean, they're also performing really good in some of the other leagues now as well. So, and in some professional teams as well. So we are just super impressed of them. They are so good, and we're so proud.
Well, one of the things I imagine some of the other nations would like to know is, how did you approach last year's championships? I almost want to use the word corral that many riders in, but I'm not sure you needed to give them much encouragement from what I've just heard about the others that you've got in Sweden. But how did you approach last year's championships, and were there any lessons you took away from it?
Yeah, I think that, I mean, we have some experience now because we have had some championships, and the riders have had some federation supports also before. So we have learned from that. But what we want is to give the riders the possibility to perform at their best at these championships so that they can benefit from each other. So we have meetings with them, we have group discussions. We also provide them with trainers and support so that they can have tactics and to be able to look at their individual strengths or possibilities. And depending on what kind of profile they have or strength or something like that, the trainers or coaches could actually help them, or the team riders could help some of the riders and so on. Because we feel that for an event like the World Championships, it would be really good to actually see how could we do this as a team? How could we make our chances the best? So that was kind of the thing that we prepared them for, and also to go through all of the steps, helping them. I mean, you know, as an athlete, you're quite nervous and anxious about everything. So you need to be able, if we could provide them with calming them down for and finding out what they need to do, when they need to do it, going through the race book, going through the regulations, have meetings and explain these things to them. I mean, all of those things, if we could help them with that, that eases their minds and they can focus on the sport and on the races and so on. I think that will be really good for them. And there's also some of the feedback that we receive that they find this helpful, that we can sort of help them perform at their best.
You mentioned there, and I am going to ask, because there were 6 women in that final from Sweden. How much of that gameplay in those 3 races in that final was team tactics, or were all 6 of them there as individuals that day?
Well, I will
Or is
say,
those too many secrets you don't want to give away?
there are some secrets here. Absolutely. There is, and there is some tactics as well. I will say that when it's down to the finals and when it's down to competing about the medals, we will not force them to any tactics, and we will not force them to act as a team or to be able to in some way help another rider. So that will be up to the riders to decide. What we will do is to provide possibility for them to perform as best as they can. And I must say that some of the riders has also a really good, really good intentions. They are actually there to help other riders. And we have riders that say, well, I know that I will not be competing about the medals, but I'm really good at this. Perhaps I could help in some way. And I mean, that's just fantastic to hear from the riders there to actually put the team or put another rider in front of themselves. That's absolutely fantastic. But with that said, I could also say that if you remember the semifinals, I could say that then we actually had quite a tactic on the semifinal, and I will say that tactic was really successful. Then we were super happy about that. So in that case, I think the tactics were pretty clear, and it
Yeah, there
succeeded.
was a very big early charge from the Swedish women,
Yeah.
and it worked.
Yeah, it worked. So yes, that was really fun to see, and I guess that also one of the reasons that we had so many riders in the final.
You know, it also, from what you're telling me, it is kind of testament to that preparation, because you say that you were so successful in the semifinals because of that strategy, and that you didn't really push the strategy in the finals. And as we saw, the strategy wasn't as successful in the finals. Your team went to I'm talking about specifically the women's team, which was loaded with a lot of people. They went to the front and pushed it, and it ended up backfiring. Whereas in retrospect, if you would have approached it the way the U.S. team did, and there's a pretty good chance that you could have ran away with that stage. So I guess it's kind of a double-edged sword, right? You do all the preparation for the semifinals. If you were to continue that, that great work that you do, then there's even more potential to maximize results in the finals.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. And I mean, this is things that we need to look at, and we need to review this, and we need to go through this with the riders and discuss it and talk about this when we're now starting to plan for the next championship. But I mean, in the end of the day, it's all come down to the riders as well. I mean, we are actually competing about medals. Some people feel sometimes that, well, I have a really good day, or I have a really good thought or feeling about this. So we as a federation will never override the rider or the riders. So we will listen to them, but we will try to give them as good possibilities to success as possible.
Yeah, and let's just say you did have two riders in that women's race finishing in the top 10. Mika Soderstrom took 6th place at the Worlds, and Emma Belforth took 10th. So some really strong performances. Two riders in the top 10, is superb. Talking about next year, Conny, when do you start your preparations for the 2025 World Championships?
Yeah, I should say that we will soon start again. It's going super fast. So I think that the preparation will start for us around August. We have a lot of thoughts and ideas already now, and we also have a really good connection with the riders and with the cyclists. So we have a good dialogue with them, but for us in the group, we are starting to plan for and set our goals and our preparations in August.
And what about you this year, Conny, as head of cycling esports in Sweden? Will you travel with the team to the final this time round?
Yeah, I really, really hope so. I wasn't allowed to do that this year, so that really sucked, if to be honest. I was really, really eager to be there, just to meet everybody in person and just to witness this fantastic event. So I guess that I will have to do something extra to be able to be on site this year.
I hope you really get the chance, because it was a tremendous event, and I think that you didn't really get the full effect of it unless you were there in person. And I'm sure that your athletes would prefer to have that support from you as well, just the comfort of having somebody who is looking out for them. I know that I mentioned Martin, he was able to make the trip, and I know that he had meetings with his athletes every morning at breakfast, and there was a very clear sense that it was a team effort there, and I hope that you get the opportunity to do that. And I also know that the athletes appreciate what you do for the national championship in Sweden. So I want to kind of dig into that a little bit with you, because as far as I'm concerned, what occurred in February for your national championships was a kind of a banner day for the sport. So the Swedish National Cycling Esports Championships was on February 7th, and you had 14 women and 13 men line up for the final on MyWhoosh. And we mentioned Mika Soderstrom, who is a certain force in the sport and has been for many years. She took the women's title. And Johannes Randap Keating also took the men's title. This event was groundbreaking in many different ways. And I want you to explain to me, just give me an overview of the event and what made it so special in your mind.
Yeah, first of all, it's really special because the nationals in Sweden is a part of a much bigger event in Sweden. All of the winter sports in Sweden come together in one city, and they make a huge live event of all of the winter sports and also broadcast them on national television. So, this is huge for winter sports in Sweden. All of the winter sports get the chance to promote themselves, to be able to reach another audience and also be able to be broadcasted on national television, which is absolutely fantastic. So I mean, to be a part of this, you actually need to apply to be able to get into this event. And Ecycling has now been a part of this for 3 years. So that's absolutely fantastic, because they didn't even know what Ecycling was when we sent in the application. They're like, oh, what is this? What do you do? And how does it work? And so on. But they also found out that this is a really good sport to be able to broadcast, because you have a great overview, you got great action and so on. So for us, it's really also about getting into the best part of winter sports in Sweden. It's not just an e-sport event. We are a part of the biggest sport event in wintertime in Sweden. So that's so cool.
Yeah, I can imagine. And also cool, you kind of breezed over the fact that it was televised on Swedish national television. So tell us a little bit of that. How did that come about? And what kind of scope did you were able to achieve for the sport? Like, how many households spent time watching it, and for how long?
Yeah, I mean, and this is also, I mean, that's a great opportunity for us to actually bring e-cycling and e-sport into every single home in Sweden. So, I mean, when we're talking numbers and so on, we have about 500,000 viewers watching e-cycling. And it's so fun, because when I meet people in my normal world or on the town or something like that, and they just say, well, I watched something called Ecycling on national TV. It looked really fun. I had no idea what it was. It's like, yeah, I know. I was the commentator, and that's what we do. They, okay, is that what you do? I mean, yeah, it's absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, we're going to have to ask Mika, Emma, if when she goes to the grocery store, if she gets asked for autographs and things now.
Yeah.
So you switched over to MyWhoosh this year. What was the reason for that decision?
Yeah, I mean, it actually was a two-way decision. I mean, first of all, I mean, since MyWhoosh is also the platform now for the World Championships, it feels kind of logical to actually do the national championships on the same platform. We have done it with Swift before, and that was also really, really good and really, really successful. But we spoke to Swift, and they said that, well, they weren't that interested in doing national championships and provide support for national championships this year. So then the decision was quite easy, because MyWhoosh were really eager to support us. And as you know, I mean, MyWhoosh actually had people on site in Sweden as well to witness the live event. So we're super happy. They also designed specific courses for this event, because the Swedish national television company is a non-commercial company, so you're not allowed to show commercial in the broadcast. So MyWhoosh was super, super good in actually making special courses for us to be able to do that with no logos and so on, so that we could provide this to all of our countries. So super helpful.
Yeah, that's interesting, because I'm sure that in order to pull off this event, you needed a lot of sponsorship backing. You needed backing of the partners for hardware, equipment, which Chris, Em and I know what that production looks like. We've seen the back end of it, and it's huge to pull that off successfully. Not too many federations have done that. So tell us about that partnership support for an event like that, what it takes to actually get that, pitching cycling esports, and telling those sponsors and partners what the value is there for them, and how do you close that deal?
Yeah, I mean, I think that one of the things that I'm most proud of, actually, to be able to pull this kind of physical events, to be able to do them, because I don't think that many people realize what kind of work and what kind of planning it takes to actually pull this kind of events off. I mean, it's so many things that can go wrong. So many things that could go wrong. And I mean, also just to be able to get 20 kicker bikes on the same site, to be able to connect them, to pair them, to get them to work, to have the tablets, to have the internet working, everything. I mean, it's a nightmare to actually plan this, but when you have done it and when it works, you're just so pleased. Just you lose 5 kilograms of your weight from the shoulders, just to actually think, oh my God, we pulled it off another year. It's fantastic. But with that said, I must also say that we have a fantastic relationship with Wahoo and Relevant, who is the distributor of Wahoo in Sweden. And they have been our partners since day one, and we are so close to them. So the Wahoo team in Sweden is almost as they are a part of the federation. We are so tight connected to each other. So we plan every event together. We are all on every physical event or site or everything we do together with them. So we plan this with them also. And this also, I mean, we also had a fantastic support of MyWhoosh, who provided the tablets and also some technical support and so on. But we also need to have a lot of competence ourselves to be able to pull this off. So I guess that here is where our unique competence within Ecycling actually pays off, and also our competence regarding digitalization and technology and sensors and so on, because as you know, it's a nightmare to just pair 20 kicker bikes with 20 tablets and have them to keep that connection throughout the whole day. So I mean, it's super stressful, it's super chaotic, but the benefits are super great as well.
Yeah, and I can tell you that in that production broadcast unit where all those pictures were being broadcast out to those 500,000 viewers, I tell you, it was as hot in that production unit as it was on those bikes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I also think that, I mean, it's so important to be able to provide a security and also a fair competition for the riders. I mean, that's so super important that they have this experience, that they are there on the same terms, they are competing in a fair way, and we give them the chance to actually fight for the nationals on equal terms. I mean, that's so super important, and that we also can do that and also add a fantastic experience to the people that are viewing this or listening to this or experience the sport for the first time. Yeah, that's a really good bonus. And to be able to witness that as a whole, yeah, we are super proud. And that's also fun to hear that we are actually also kind of top of the class internationally, pulling this kind of events off year after year. So that's also nice to hear.
So, Conny, just as a little aside there, does the Swedish Cycling Federation know how many of its members do and race e-cycling? Do you have any way to count in terms of, numbers to look at growth or anything like that?
Well, I don't actually have that number now, and I guess that we could check a little bit, because when we do our national cup, we call SWE Cup, which we arrange every year, we have also implemented a specific e-cycling license, so that you can have this e-cycling license with insurance and so on, so that you're insured when you're e-racing as well. That's when we introduced that one, we saw that we have about 5,000 licensed riders who is actually paying to get this insurance and getting this license and so on. And I would say that we have had, I mean, the number haven't increased, but they haven't decreased as well. I think that there's kind of, I mean, we saw a little bit of decrease when the economics starting to fail and everything. I mean, when we saw this was also connected with fewer licenses on Swift and fewer users on MyWhoosh and so on. And that also, we followed that trend as well. But now we see that the trend is kind of changing, and the numbers are up again to the same that they were before. And we also see a huge increase in youth. So be able to get youth and younger riders. So that's also why we do this tournament together with Denmark and Norway, to have this youth Scandinavian Cup that we're doing together to attract people under 18 to be able to discover e-cycling. And
because it's really interesting, isn't it, from a governing body perspective? Often a lot of government body funding or sports funding comes in relation to certain KPIs, and one of those KPIs is often growth in terms of the numbers of people in each discipline. So it's interesting I mean, I've spoken to a lot of people at a number of governing bodies who have said to me, oh, well, actually, we don't know how many people. And it's really interesting to hear you say, with the introduction of those e-cycling licenses, there are benefits to license holders, but it also gives you some tangibles in terms of how many, gives you an idea of how many people are willing to purchase a license to compete in that arena.
Yeah, I do. And I mean, of course, I think that the license or the fee should also be, I mean, fair. I mean, there should be a really low threshold to be able to do this, because I think that we're not interested in making money of them. We are making an interest of getting them an insurance, and also, as you said, able to see how many are actually licensed e-cyclists. Because as I think many people or many federations struggles with, they don't know if this is it a road cyclist, is it a gravel cyclist, or is it an e-cyclist, or what is it? And we have both. But with that said, I will also say that in our other licenses, the e-cycling licenses is included. So if you buy a competitive UCE license for road or gravel or mountain bike, you will also get e-cycling license. So we have a bit of a gray area here, so we don't know exactly. So I mean, a lot of our road cyclists are also e-cyclists, and vice versa.
Yeah, well, naturally.
Absolutely. So we spoke about partners. Perhaps one of your biggest partners is the UC, right? I interviewed Jacob Fraser recently, and he said to me that they're making plans for international event calendar, a ranking system, a universal rule set. What is your relationship with the UCI from where you stand as the esports coordinator for the Swedish Cycling Federation? And do you see a clear vision to go forward?
I would honestly have to say no to that, actually. I would say that I don't think that we talk a lot with UCI with regarding calendars or plans or strategic things. I mean, I guess that they are talking to other people at the federation, perhaps, when they discuss road events or gravel events or mountain bike events, but they are really not talking to us that much. I don't feel that we have close discussions regarding rules or regulations and so on. I mean, it's more like they provide rules and regulations and instructions and we comply to them. So, I mean, that would be something that I would find really, really a good way to move forward, to start working more closely, and also perhaps for UCI to get more information about our competence and our unique situation within e-cycling, because I think that some of the regulations or demands or possibilities that we have within e-cycling differ from road or mountain bike or other things. So no, I don't think that we have close discussions. I wouldn't agree with that. Not with me anyway.
Well, I almost feel like you're a victim of your own success, right? Jacob's he's one man over there, and he sees all the great work that you're doing. He's like, he's okay. We don't need to, On the other side of that, if the federations have a clear guideline or criteria that they needed to, like a standard that they needed to set, like I can assume that when you look at the other federations, you're probably frustrated by the fact that you're doing all these things to move the sport forward. And there are some federations, like we mentioned the Spanish Federation, where they actually block their athletes from competing in the World Championship. How does, from that point of view, as somebody who actually is breaking new ground in the sport, do you feel that the sport as a whole would benefit from like a universal minimum criteria? And where do you think you would fit into that?
Yeah, but absolutely. I think that would be really, really great. I mean, I think it would be really great if we could have a group of people that are actually interested in driving e-cycling forward, to be able to sit down and discuss these kind of questions and have a forum for taking this to the next level. I mean, we are talking about a lot about making this a possibility for Olympics, for example, in the future and so on. So I think that it's really important to talk to us that are moving this forward, that are willing to do things. And I also think that this is probably based on what kind of person and what kind of drive or kind of interest you have. And I mean, there are a few federations and a few people that are interested in doing this. So I think that they should focus on that and actually get that competence and get that possibilities together so that we could evolve the sport together, because no one will be happier than me if we could decide on common race books, common rules, common regulations. How could we how should we handle these kind of situations and so on. I mean, that would be great if we could all lean on something that we have decided on together.
You know, it's interesting that you say that, because I interviewed Michael Rogers in Abu Dhabi, and he told me that his primary job is to get everybody to the table. When we spoke to Jacob Fraser on this podcast, he reiterated that to us. But if you look at the UCI website, every single discipline has a commission in which they bring together people to that table to discuss how to approach the strategy going forward for every single discipline. I'm talking about every discipline, and esports is not represented. The only discipline that's not represented. I totally hear what you're saying, and I know that would be something that would certainly move the sport forward, and it's great to hear that you say that.
I'm going to just pick up before we finish, Conny, on the Olympic part of the conversation, because there's been a lot of conversation recently about e-cycling being part of the Olympic esports games. But you said something earlier on in terms of Sweden, it being part of the winter sports highlight. And it reminded me of something Ariel van Haren said to us when we were talking with the Ionian team. And she talked about it being a winter sport as well, and possibly should be part of the Winter Olympics as a winter sports cycling discipline. Where do you sit on that? Do you sit on it should be Olympic esports or perhaps Winter Games?
Yeah, that's a good and really hard question, actually, Emma. I really don't know. I think that for e-sport and for e-cycling, I think it would be really, really good if e-cycling would be a part of the Winter Olympics. I think that would be actually confirming that e-cycling is like any other sport or another, like every other branch within cycling. So I think that would actually give a lot to e-cycling, and also to be able to reach a completely different audience and completely different people. But with that said, I also think that it could also mean that if it would be a part of the e-cycling Olympics or the e-sport Olympics, I mean, perhaps that's easier to do, and it's easier to start there. But I also feel that, at least in my view, I think that e-cycling is also a different sport than many other e-sports. I mean, if we compare e-cycling to other e-sports, we kind of stand out. And I think that perhaps the traditional e-cyclists perhaps don't need to be e-sport in another way. So perhaps what I'm saying, without making an absolutely mess of everything, perhaps I'm leaning against to be a part of the traditional Winter Olympics then.
It's interesting. Just something you alluded to earlier, and there's often been a lot of debate about cyclocross being the winter discipline, but very difficult on snow. Whereas actually in Sweden, if it's part and parcel of the winter sports, it just does add a different part to the conversation, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. I have actually competed in the nationals in cyclocross in Sweden, and I can verify that it's a really cold sport in Sweden.
It is. I can imagine it is, because I've raced cyclocross on snow in the UK, and that was bad enough.
Just continuing on the Olympics question, because I think this is very significant. Would it be a game changer for you? And in the way that I want to ask, does that then give the federation reason to back you financially if there are medals on the line?
Absolutely. I mean, that would be a really big game changer, because every sport and every athlete that qualifies for the Olympics will receive national funding. So, I mean, yeah, absolutely. It will be really, really huge step for the athlete, but it would be also really good for the federation and for e-cycling as well, because that will also state that this is really something that we need to focus on now, and also that we are supporting from our national government funding. So yeah, super good thing to lift up.
Well, do you know, I think we're going to leave it there, Conny. I think that's a fabulous place for us to finish today. Just a reminder before we do finish that the Australian Elite Cycling Esports National Championships are Friday the 10th of April. You can watch Kate Trident, who has been on the Virtual Velo podcast, defend her title on either the Australian Cycling or MyWhoosh YouTube channel. And the Zwift World Series as well resumes this week. It's all go in elite racing, I tell you. With race 4 of 5, Ollie Jones is leading overall in that series for the men, and Catherine Fuhr is leading on the women's side of the Zwift World Series.
Good luck to Josh Harris and Kate, the Austin Nationals. They actually are going to come on to break it all down with us, so that'll be fun. And I think it's a shame that this podcast is going to go out after that Zwift World Series has already taken place, because there hasn't really been much lead up to it, and I'm afraid that not too many people even realize that it's happening. But you can always go back and watch it. I'm sure it'll be really exciting. I will be watching it, and good luck to Ollie there as well.
Well, you can subscribe to the Virtual Velo Podcast on your favourite podcast provider, and of course on YouTube. You can follow me, Emma Martin, on Instagram at biking_Emma, and Chris at the Zamunique. You can catch me this weekend putting words to the action of the UCI Mountain Bike Eliminator World Cup, where there is another Swedish rider at the top of the tree, because Edvard Lind took the 2024 UCI Mountain Bike Eliminator World Cup Series, and he is on the start line to defend that this weekend. You can head over to thezamunique.com, and of course, please become a member of the Escape Collective to join the conversation and support independent cycling esports journalism. We have, as Chris has alluded to, more interesting guests waiting in the wings. From the world of cycling esports, we have the Ruvi CEO Peter Samek coming on board, the Zwift Games champ Neil Fryatt, Josh Harris and Kate Tridden breaking down those Australian nationals, and several other people waiting in the wings. Thank you so much for your patience, and thank you to Conny Björnehall for sharing his fascinating perspective from Swedish cycling. And of course, you, our listeners, for listening. Chris will remind you to please take care of your heart. Get a coronary calcium scan. Don't forget to request it if you think you need it. Me, I'm going to tell you to stay safe. Enjoy your cycling. We'll see you again soon. Goodbye.
Bye.